Welcome to Future Conversations, the podcast that explores research through the lens of tomorrow by Monash University, Malaysia.
Welcome to the podcast that's rooted in research, shaping the future through conversations today. I'm Meera Sivasodi, Professor of Practice, Digital Media and Communication, and today our discussion is about addressing challenges and embracing opportunities when it comes to older generation in Malaysia and, perhaps even in the Asia-Pacific region. Joining me to have this conversation, Professor Keith Hill, former inaugural director of the Monash Rehabilitation, Aging and Independent Living Research Centre, also from Monash University, Australia. He's a physiotherapist and a researcher with extensive track record across community, hospitals and residential care settings. Joining us also, YB Rajiv Rishyakaran, State Assembly person from Bukit, Malaysia, which is a constituency in the Petaling Jaya area. And Rajiv is here because he's got a large population of the seniors in his community. Joining us also, Tay Pei Lee, Professor and Head of Department Management at the School of Business, Monash University, Malaysia. Also Director of the Gerontechnology Lab here in Monash University, Malaysia. And Anna Chu, Founder and CEO of Meaningfull Life. And Anna has set up a lot of senior care centers, and she's going to share her experience with us. Malaysia's senior population is growing. 7% of the population now is 65 years and above. I think we're heading for an aged population by the year 2035, and that's just not long, not far away from us. We're going to be discussing senior care, aging in place, fall prevention, senior parks, technology, as well as something that we don't really talk about, which is intergenerational engagement. So welcome to the show, all of you. I'm going to start with Rajiv. What have been some of your challenges, Rajiv, understanding and addressing needs of the older population in your constituency?
I think the biggest challenge is always money. But before we come to money, the challenge is also a very diverse needs. It depends on which group you ask, and every group has a very different desire or need for help. And so it's not about having 2 or 3 policies to fix things. I think it's about having 100 different things going right to address everyone, because everyone faces a different challenge.
Yeah. When you say diverse, are you talking about ethnicity? Are you talking about different age groups?
Needs.
Just needs.
Yes.
Okay, so different types of care that's needed for the population. What's the percentage of seniors in your population?
Close to 50% in my constituency.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yes, but that is not reflective of the country. That is just because my area is relatively mature, and a lot of the younger generation have married and moved out of my constituency. And so their parents are the ones remaining behind.
Okay, right. I think that's slowly going to happen to the older neighborhoods. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, because all my neighborhoods are the older, matured neighborhoods. There are 7 state assemblymen in PJ, so my one is exceptionally elderly, but it's not reflective of PJ or even Malaysia.
Okay, but it's obvious they like you because they keep voting you back in. Okay, what about Phil?
Can I just throw a comment in there around the ageing populations and Malaysia and that rapid ageing that you're talking about. Australia took 75 years to go from 7 to 14% of our population being aged over 65. So we had a lot longer than what you have to make a lot of adjustments. So it is a lot of things that are going to need to be changed in a fairly short time.
Yeah. What did it take, Keith, to get there? You've worked with the Victorian Government, you've set up elderly parks, and elderly parks have been set up in other parts of the world, China, London, Berlin, even Toronto. But how did you convince the Victorian Government that this is something that the older people needed?
Well, the seniors exercise parks are just one very small element, and we've been working particularly with local governments here, so the city-type governments who they are in control of the community parks, which every community park has a children's playground. virtually none of them have a seniors exercise park. The seniors exercise park we talk about are purposely built for older people, and they're different to what is in many community parks that you have here already. Most of the equipment that is outdoors works on strength and fitness. It does not work on balance. And so balance is the particular bit, if you want to reduce falls risk in older people, that you need to have exercise to improve. So the particular exercise parks through LAPSET that we have been working with and helping to get government to install in Australia, purpose-built, and they do have that balance component.
Okay, what about funding? Were they happy to give you money for it?
The majority of what we've done to date has been through research funding. So we've been doing research, getting research funding, but the councils have also had to get some funding of their own to install the equipment, to install the safe ground underneath so that there's not a risk of injury when you're exercising. So it's a combination of sources, but there has to be a commitment by some level of government when you're looking at community spaces.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a short while, but Paley, you are working on a AGELESS. It's called AGELESS. It's a project which is research funded, am I correct? And that looks at cognitive impairment and frailty. It's sort of, did you guys both work together on this? No, Keith is not involved in AGELESS, but both of you have done other papers. You've published other papers. Tell me more about AGELESS. What does it actually entail?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. AGELESS is actually funded by the Ministry of Higher Education under the LRGS Long-Term Grant Scheme project for 5 years. So multiple institutions, public and private, are involved in this project, big project, and 50 of us researchers are actively working on this interdisciplinary research. So we have 5 main research objectives here. So the first part is looking at the diagnostic tools for early detections. We base on the longitudinal data and also the AI to detect, early dementia symptoms, onsets. And then we have the second part, which is on the interventions to improve the multi-domain type of nutrition, diet, exercise to improve the health of the older people. And then the third part is looking at the gut microbiome. And the fourth part is more on the care economy, the caregiver sector. And the last part, which I'm heading, is the mobility solutions. So it is very interesting because this is one of the projects we're actively going into the community. We host stakeholders event. We went to Penang, we went to Perak locally, and we also fly to Sarawak to collect data for this project.
And I just want to ask you, when I first called you to be a part of this project, you said to me, often the researchers and academics don't talk to people in industry, right? How do you feel about that? And, here I'm bringing you together with these academics and with somebody who could possibly champion policy change. What has been your challenge? And, how do you think it can come together better?
I think the whole industry is changing. We've been having a lot of dialogue with each other. And to be fair, in the past, a lot of it is theory, unless you put it to practice. So for example, you can be, someone would say, okay, you have dementia. And then what would the geriatrician tell you? Usually they said, okay, can you do activities? Can you make sure mom has her community? She's mixing with people. So I'm a full-time person. How practical is that to make sure, mom? So make sure is a very easy word to speak, to use, but how applicable is that? And so I think the application then comes together, and I'm glad, so today we spoke about how potentially we can work together to try to put this into practice. When we are engaging people in the programs, for the researchers to be able to come in and keep track of, where they are at. So I think that's very important to have baselines and then to see if people are improving based on all these programs that we're doing with them. So it's a very necessary thing, especially for us. We need to super speed ourselves to this knowledge base.
Australia took, what did you say, 14 years, did you say?
We took 75 years to make that transition to 14%. But I think it's very important to include all the stakeholders. And you're very right that researchers often sit in their ivory towers and they don't necessarily know what's happening in the real world out there. We try very hard now to change that. But part of what we do is now trying to engage with all of the key people, and that's the people around here, but it's also the end users. It's the older people themselves have to be very actively engaged in helping us to decide what it is that they want going forwards.
And have we done that? Do we know what older people want? How do they want to age? And I think we also need to take into consideration we have different generations, right? We have the boomers at the moment who are the older people. There's the sandwich generation, like some of us here who are the Gen Xers, and then people younger. So how, and we all want to age in place, Anna. Is that even possible, do you think? And Malaysia leads in terms of non-communicable diseases. We're all being diagnosed younger. How are we going to age? And if we are going to age in place, what does that look like?
So aging in place is not being in one place in front of the TV, just waiting for the end. And I think that's how a lot of people see aging, unfortunately, that it is not doing anything, engaging the help of a foreign domestic worker, just sitting at home. I think that's the worst way to age, honestly. So we look at it through 3 pillars. We call it physical, mental, and cognitive, and psychosocial. And all these have to come together. So for us as operators, when I look at it, I see a practical way is to have a community center. And so what does the community center look like? Where all these expertise can come together, the professionals can come in to give their expertise when intervention is needed for you to re-able yourself to go back to society. So we want you to live in a healthy manner, given that the insurance premiums today are crazy. You want to be healthy, and it's not about how long you can live, but really it's about the health span.
Yep. Yeah. Insurance companies are not going to be happy with me, but they're actually ageist. The insurance premiums just skyrocket when you are older, and I think that is very unfair because you've contributed for so many years of your healthy life, and then suddenly, the premiums go up and many abandon their policies. But Rajiv, if you were to have community centers and all of that, do you think what Anna is saying is practical? Because I think Anna has also worked in a space where it's costly to age well at the moment in this country. If you can afford it, then yes, you have all these facilities and all of that. But for the average person and for the person who's socioeconomically challenged, what does that look like?
Well, like I said in the beginning, the biggest challenge is money. And so I'm here to listen and learn and to get insights from all of you as to what you think the best bang for the buck is. Because community centers is just the headline. But what is the devil? The devil is in the details. And what is the details? What exactly does a community center look like for it to work well? And how do you deal with a situation where you have a very diverse population of elderly people? Now, let's take between 70 to 75 years old. All right. So let's say if you bring together 1,000 people who are aged between 70 to 75, they're going to have vastly different physical capabilities. Some are still driving, active, working, and some are bedridden. But besides physical, some are living very purpose-driven lives, and some are, as you say, watching TV all day long. And so they are all very diverse, and they all have very different wants. And so how does a center really address what they need? And maybe what they need goes beyond centers. And so I think it is complicated. It is complex. So understanding the problem is difficult, but understanding the problem is only the first step. And then the financial model of how you pay for things, because we are not a country that has a large tax base. Our tax revenue ratio to GDP is only about 15%, a far cry from a lot of Western countries at 40 to 50%. So getting government to pay for things is probably not viable, probably not possible under the current tax system that we have. Raising taxes drastically also is very unappealing to the younger generation who are still paying taxes. So there are a lot of challenges moving ahead. So I think it's not just finding solutions, but finding solutions that make financial sense is also very important. We cannot forget that last bit, because solutions in a vacuum will not be good enough. Solutions that make financial sense is what we need.
Yeah. Peli, you've seen conditions in B40 communities where in Malaysia we refer to the B40 communities as people who are really socioeconomically challenged. The conditions are dire. You've gone in, you are trying to build a model in which it could possibly work for them. And you have told me personally, funding is a challenge. Just to even showcase one example of how these people can age, just share with us what you have observed and what will it take. Simple things that can help people in these communities.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of time when we talk about the aging society and the community, people will look at the high end, the T40 group, and most of the time they will leave the B40 group as like a problem to be solved by the government. But let's look at it at this is we can do something about it together. So one of the project that our team is working on is the redesign at iHome, is to have this home modification for the low income older adults so that they can actually age in place. So for example, we will kind of interview them, know their needs and their daily routines, and we will modify their house according to their needs. Not too expensive, but something practical. Grab bar, ramp, some important, movable items, and color contrast that can improve the vision part that is actually to their needs. So we are looking at human-centered solutions for them, and then we are inviting them as partner, not just the user. So I think a lot of time when we work on giving solutions to the users, we want to tell them this is the standards and you can use it, but sometimes older people and low-income group, they have different needs.
Yeah, for every one of them. Keith, I'm sure you went through that in Australia. How did you get through it?
Well, I don't think we've got all the answers, even for ourselves, and there is a lot of diversity between countries. So what works in Australia may need quite a lot of adaptation
You can start
in
with the taxpayers.
other countries. But the one thing I think we are not doing well enough, and I think it applies across most countries, is having a health promotion focus rather than treating the problems when they arise. In my particular, one of my areas of interest is falls prevention. There are some early signs that people are starting to develop balance problems, but there's nothing out there for them unless they go actively looking. We need to make it easier for them to find programs, things they can do themselves at home that can help to minimise their risk and to improve their balance ability so they then don't have that major fall later on. And the same with all the other chronic health conditions. There's so many things. And exercise is one of those that can be done in your own home. It can be done in parks, and the advantage of parks is it's outdoors and it's free. Well, once you've put the infrastructure there, it's free. And so some of these things are much more able to be utilised across the board, across that community, from wealthy to not so wealthy populations.
Okay. And the design of an elderly park is different?
The parks that we look at particularly are purpose-built and they're commercially available. So they have a number of different workstations and they have a QR code. So looking at the technology side, you can use your phone, have a look at how you're meant to use the equipment. You don't have to have a physiotherapist telling you how to use the equipment safely, and then you can use it yourself. In Australia with these parks, we also have opportunities where people come to try them with someone who knows how to use the equipment, particularly if you do have some balance or mobility problems, is often when you do need a bit of health professional input. But if you're at the reasonably well end of the spectrum and you want to do that health promotion activity, you don't need the health professional to guide you. You can use that equipment very easily yourself.
Okay. Do you think that's practical, Anna?
Yeah, totally.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm thinking about the weather.
I mean, weather is a small challenge. I think the bigger challenge is you want to sit in front of the TV. The bigger challenge is you're lonely, and you're lonely to the point that you don't want to see other people anymore.
Inertia, depression, all these kind of things. So we still champion having a community, nothing like having your peers do the same thing. So sometimes we either call it peer support or peer pressure. Both work just as well. And when you see someone doing better than before because they started to do the programs and things like that, what we also do is we are very, very practical people. We bring care to the community. For example, having people like physiotherapists over there, the professionals. If you need an intervention, we also do a baseline for your physical, your cognitive, your psychosocial, and we see and balance which areas need care. For example, if you're depressed, you're not going to do these things. You're not going to wake up in the morning. So it just perpetuates. So we really, really have to watch people in a different way. But just being out there in sunlight, it's so necessary. You talk about mood regulation. You talk about having vitamin D. You talk about sleep itself. When the sunlight hits the eye, it regulates so many things. And so we need people outdoors and physical exercise. I think there's been enough, studies to prove that it has a lot of benefits for seniors.
And with our research, we've also found that relationships are built between older people when they do try these exercise parks. They then start to come together and make times to meet, and that social interaction becomes part of the physical activity.
Yeah. Our older population is also financially challenged. That's something we don't usually talk about. But how would you be able to help Rajiv, Anna? I mean, if you have the chance to work with someone who has a huge 50% of the population, how does that work out in terms of numbers?
Well, I have about 50,000 voters in Bukit Yasing, so let's put it about close to 25,000 seniors.
Okay. How would you help them?
So when we look at a product, can I say care is a very personal thing? A building cannot care for you. So if we are thinking about products and services that are based on a product, we've gotten it all wrong. It's actually the software that counts. What we are talking about today, all the things that we're putting together is the know-how. No different from, programs that children go through. It's actually very much the software for their education, their development and things like that. When we get the software right, the hardware can be a Poway center, for example. It doesn't need to be fancy. It's a park which is free. I go hiking in his, we all know that. Exactly. And the people that are faster than me at times are really the seniors who go there on a daily basis. And you look how fit they are. I can bet you if they do our wellness test, they're going to pass as well cognitively. They're also going to pass as well on the psychosocial bits of it. So all this has to come together. Definitely, despite the heat, you can do it earlier in the morning. It gets you up in the morning, gets you going. I feel this is all. So there's a way to design programs in order to create a very healthy society, and it's better done in community.
Yeah. Are you convinced, Rajiv? Because
I've no disagreement with anything anyone has said today. I think one thing that is missing, care is one thing, and you're talking about facilities and the parks and all that. But what about the purpose-driven life? Because the seniors today have spent the last 30 to 40 years working, having a purpose. But then when they retire, because of the way we run our economies, the whole world does it. We have this retirement age. And once you hit retirement, you lose a large purpose in life, which is your career, your work. By that age, your children are most likely grown up, and you don't need to play a very big parenting role. And so you also lose that part. So your purpose-driven life is gone. And so then that comes the decline, I think.
Yes.
Speaking as the layman here among everyone in this panel, but then comes the decline, because that's when you are just watching TV or you are chit-chatting with your friends. But without that purpose, I think that's a big problem in this elderly community now. But those who still continue to have purpose-driven life, be it still working, a lot of people work until they pass away. My late father was one of them, never retired. But that's a small minority of people who get involved in NGOs, causes, activism. So, they have something that drives them every day. But I think that's important. I think having something that drives you every day.
So to answer that, we actually also design programs. So the reason we work with professionals like psychologists, counselors, is because they understand that we look at it, a senior needs to be seen and heard. I can imagine that a CEO that suddenly has to retire would feel very, very lost. He would sit at home. The wife is like, why are you still at home? Go out. And then it starts to create problems at home as well, which is why having a community or even a community hub, a clubhouse as we're building, allows people to come together to be seen and heard. Very, very important things. Their families has heard their lifeline for the longest time. Their stories, the grandchildren aren't going to hear it repeated again. This is where they are able to tell their community about what they've done before. They still maintain relevance. So when we look at it, they are smart, they are strong, they're part of society, they have sound mind. This is what a meaningful creed is all about, where we actually address.
Do you think that's enough to have a community to be seen and heard? Or do you think going further than that to have a purpose is necessary?
I think probably a bit of both, but I'm actually at the stage where I'm looking very closely in the eye of semi-retirement, and work is my life. And as I move away from that, I don't have hobbies. Currently trying to think about what I will do actively to fill that time and in a meaningful way. And that's very different for all of us. But I think what we do need is some facilitators to help people to do that, and to also highlight that if you don't fill that gap, that is a big contribution to problems as you age. We have a current project happening down in Melbourne, which is looking at that peri-retirement phase and looking at some of the challenges that do occur in that time, including the loneliness, the social isolation, depression, including some drug and alcohol increased use. And we're doing a longitudinal study to try to understand a lot more, and then to put in place interventions around. And it can be very simple things, but somehow you've got to get the people aware that this is a problem. And it need not be necessarily through a structured program, but the message has got to get out there.
So we should start preparing them at 10 years before retirement.
Like us.
No, I'm nowhere near retirement. Age-wise, we are the same, but I'm nowhere near retirement.
We're not, but we're going to get there, Rajiv. And so many people define themselves when it comes to their jobs, right? I mean, if you ask me who I am or how to introduce myself, the first thing I would do is say, yeah, I'm at Monash University, but I need that connection for my identity, and that's something we all need to think about, right?
So we talk about this life, how people have so many different types of coaches nowadays. There's even a career coach. Have we ever thought about a proper retirement coach? We've never had that. So, you talk about a parenting counselor. What do you have for people going through? First time I heard peri-retirement.
So did I.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's a peri-retirement.
It's an assumption that it's a wonderful time of life. Everything's going to be beautiful. You've got all this time on your hands. But that's part of the problem. You have all this time on your hands and you haven't prepared for how to use it. So it demands a lot more work.
I think the difference between retirement, post-retirement and pre-retirement is you have to work to live. Then you are working for a purpose. And so a lot of people are stuck in this, I'm just working to live. And so I am very glad the day I can stop working to live and I can start drawing my pension to live. But then you lose your purpose. So building in that purpose needs to start years before you actually retire.
How do you do that?
Last year, I have the privilege to do this case study with one of the logistic company called Bukit Logistics. And they actually have a program for the retirees where they actually hire the retirees back to their warehouse. And it's more for the post-retirement employment. I think what we need is we should have these conversations with the business leader, that you should have this platform that we welcome people who wants to contribute to the company in the industry, or in the education, they can be the educator, they can be mentor to our young generation. We actually welcome, like we have the EI Hub, where sometimes we get some very experienced mentor to talk to our students.
I mean, I love it in Singapore. If you land in Changi Airport, you find seniors handing out brochures, explaining to you what are some of your tourist activities that you can do. They're well spoken, because they come from that generation where English was strong, right? That's another thing. Language is a problem in this country because we all communicate very differently. How do you deal with that?
I would say purpose, I go back to purpose again, right? Purpose comes in different forms. What your purpose is for you is different for someone else. So I think it's helping them find their own purpose. It could be something as simple as I want to make sure I'm strong enough to continue on playing with my grandchildren. And so then the programs start to kick in, which is relevant for their purpose at that point of time. It may not be that they want to continue working. We are assuming that they want to keep staying employed as part of their purpose. So our tagline at the Clubhouse is press play on life. I say press play simply because I think we can all agree that seniors probably have put a pause onto playing, and that actually causes a lot of problems. If they know how to play, they know how to find their purpose. We go back to them being not childish, but childlike. And what does that look like? So they have to maintain that bit of them. The dignity comes in, all these kind of things. Do they want to do new programs, new learnings? This gives them purpose because they're still learning. So we go to the smart, strong society, part of society, incorporated. So incorporated into society could come in various forms. They could continue working, and all of them then become relevant, because with a multicultural society, you would understand your own culture better. What is it that you can help build within your own, race, within your own religion, within your own culture, within your own village? Then this has a trickle-through effect, I would say, to the whole community.
Yeah, Rajiv?
Well, I do agree. Purpose is different for different people, and it should be, because each of us is built differently, each of us is driven differently, and finding that is important. But the example you gave to me strikes a very huge alarm, because that's also what I see around me in my family, and also in the community out there in the community among my residents. This, I want to be fit enough to play with my grandchildren. I want to be fit enough to still interact with my children, but a lot of their purpose is centered around their children and their grandchildren. This is well and great. For example, my kids are 8, 7, and 5 years old. So if their grandmother wants to play with them every day, and she wants to be fit enough to play with them every day, I think they are going to enjoy it. She's going to enjoy it. But in 5 years' time, they're not going to be interested in playing with their grandmother. They're going to have their social life. They want to do something different. And then grandmother goes into a depression. And this is the problem that I saw with my grandmother. She only wanted attention from her 4 children, no one else. And any suggestion, all the cousins, family, friends, or any other thing that happens outside the house, absolutely not interested, but just wanted the attention. And so, her 4 children, being the sandwich generations, also have their limitations, because they have their young children, and they also need to take care of their work, their kids, and they do give her attention, but I think they were all stretched until the day she passed away. So if your purpose is centered around your children and your grandchildren, I see that as a very big alarm bell.
If it's only that, 100%, I don't disagree. Yeah.
One of the other things that's quite substantial in Australia, and I think across Asia as well, is volunteerism for older people, and that's another avenue of purpose. But the question there, and with a lot of other things, is how do you get someone to start along that journey? And so things like come and try sessions for either volunteering type opportunities or for a whole range of other things for older people are often a good way to get them to have a little bit of an experience of it, hopefully a positive experience that they will then take on board. But if they don't do that, just thinking about volunteering, not knowing anybody that they're going to meet there, it's often a barrier.
Yeah, but that doesn't address the depression and, that just to get out of the house and wanting to volunteer, that's a challenge as well.
Well, it is if depression's an issue, but if it's...
So you want to have the purpose before you retire. You want to have your purpose when you're younger and you start preparing for that. Don't get into the rut and then try. Then it's really difficult to get out of the rut. But I think if we do a survey among those above 70 years old today and just ask them one simple question, what's your purpose in life? Many would struggle to answer that. And I think if you talk about what kind of care the government should put, what kind of facilities, how we upgrade the park, I think that's well and good, important discussions. We should do the best that we can when it comes to facilities, the parks and whatnot. But if the community doesn't have a purpose, then no matter what fancy playgrounds you put to help people with their balance, they're going to stay home and scroll the TV because they have lost all motivation in life.
Yeah. Intergenerational programs, Paley, you've actually done some of it. Do you think it works?
Yeah, so I was very glad that WHO invited me to review the toolkit for the connecting generations. And then last year we partnered with KL Sing to organize the intergenerational program that we pair the young and older singer together, and we see something different where it's not just about singing, it's also about listening to each other, sharing space with each other to sing in the choir setting, and also co-creating joy. So one of the young people say that, I don't think the senior have the energy to sing like us, but after the session, it completely changed their mind. And the seniors will actually say that, this is a space for me to talk to the young people, and I didn't understand their challenges, but now I do understand their challenges. For example, they think that young people always have a good life, but the young people who pair with him actually have to do 2 jobs. Part-time jobs. Yeah, so that actually changed the perception towards the young. So this will actually reduce ageism, and that is a very important part as well.
Keith, how realistic is that, given we are the sandwich generation trying to manage, 2 different generations, one before, one after? How realistic is that?
I think the intergenerational philosophy is very powerful. And in Australia, there's quite a lot of older people who don't have the direct family, the grandchildren coming to visit on, or even staying with them. And so that's a big hole in their life. And opportunities for young children, young adults and older people to interact and to see each other as valuable contributors to community is really important. And we've done some similar work in Melbourne where we brought together some primary school children. We had about 50 primary school children, about 10 university students, and there was about 30 older people. And they came together through a range of programs, and the relationships that were built on those programs were very powerful. But it really broke down age stereotype and the ageism issue, which I think is a fairly big problem that we have, and that will continue to make the age being seen as a problem for the rest of society when it's really a valuable part of society. So the intergenerational element, I think, can help with that.
So it should start in schools, you think?
I think so. The work that I've seen, and I know of Paley's work as well, that's a very good age to get good relationships, for them to understand that older people are great to sit and have a chat to, and they have a lot of wisdom that they can share with the young children, highly valuable.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, in a community setting, the psychologists say, they said that perhaps we should get young adults with a lot of anxiety, or even the young teens, to come and sit in a senior community, because the vibes are slower, it's very calm, and then they'll learn to slow down. So the art of the slow life is very important. What I also do from a job perspective is I hire younger people, because the seniors will look at them as if I'm interacting with the grandchildren. So there's no barrier for a senior to interact with me. Sometimes they're a bit like, you look like my child. Okay, here you are going to control me again, going to tell me what to do, direct my life. But when a young person says the same thing to them, they're like, you're so kind, you're so thoughtful. So you see this perspective, and this is why there's a lot of things that need to be changed. We cannot do it overnight, but there are protocols, there are evidence-based, things that we can put together, programs and all that, and we have to start there. So we'll keep changing. I mean, we are all learning as well, but if we don't start anywhere, we will never learn. By the time it comes to us aging, I think it's going to be dreadful. So we have to do something.
One activities and a project that me and Keith we have completed, which is the Women in Tech project. So we actually get the young people to be the trainer to the older people who are not tech savvy, to learn CapCut, to develop their videos, and the videos they will actually showcase their products, like if they are selling insurance or they are selling cookies, and they have to put their CapCut video on their social media, and they actually learn it because it's the young people who taught them, and they actually have the self-efficacy to learn that technology, and they feel empowered after they have produced that the video is about their work. Yeah, that will help them to improve their income.
Yeah, I think I'll need someone else to help my parents because I have absolutely no patience. I don't know why when it comes to our own parents, it's so difficult to help them navigate technology. You've carried out digital workshops
Yes.
in your constituency.
Every Wednesday.
Oh, and what does that look like?
So we have a smartphone class that runs every Wednesday from 10 to 12. And it's revolving. I mean, some people come once or twice, some people come every week. And it's basically, it started off with having some teaching goals, but it's become a Q&A session. Basically, it's where you bring your phone, Apple, Android, or whatever phone, and you learn how to get things done that you don't know, like how to use the TNB app, how to navigate parking, how to send location when people ask you, how to delete pictures from your phone because your memory has gotten full, and so on. So that has helped bridge the digital literacy gap. Actually, in Bukit Gasing, I opened the smartphone class to everyone because it's a fixed cost with the teacher. But when it comes, we also run another smartphone subsidy program where we subsidize nearly all the cost of a smartphone. They just have to pay 100 ringgit if they can't afford to buy a smartphone, so that no one is disconnected. Yeah, so if not just seniors, but mostly the ones that come for this are seniors. But if you can't afford to buy a phone, we sell it to you, a brand new phone with warranty for 100 ringgit. We'll pay the rest of the cost. And if you can't even afford that 100 ringgit, and we do house visits for those who are under our welfare schemes to make sure that they are really in bad financial shape, we will give it them to them for free so that they won't be disconnected.
Then you're doing well, Rajiv. Who's funding this?
I'm using my state government allocation for Bukit Gasing to fund this.
Not enough to do more, though.
It's enough for me to take care of my constituency. So I limit the program to my constituency.
Okay, that's just digital, right? But given the conversation today,
It's a lot more than
so
digital.
much, yeah.
But digital is one of the reasons for disconnect. Because if someone is not on a smartphone, you are not part of the family WhatsApp chat. You are not on Instagram, you're missing out everything that's happening among your nephews and nieces or grandchildren, and you're missing out a lot of announcements happen electronically. And these are not planned. These are just things that happen. You post them online, you post them on Instagram, you post them on the family WhatsApp chat, and everyone's in the loop except two uncles who do not have a smartphone. And so that disconnect is real, and that disconnect is what I want to help eliminate. So if you can't afford it, we will help you. If you don't know how to use it, we'll help you. If you don't want to learn, then we can't help you.
Okay. Keith, you wanted to add on?
I think that digital literacy is a big issue, and it is an important facilitator for a lot of people to be able to feel more socially connected. So it's a wonderful initiative. Digital connection's only part of the solution. And so the real, for a lot of older people, it's also the face-to-face interaction that is so critical. So we need both. We need those opportunities to get older people out interacting, and even the classes you're running are an opportunity for people to meet, to say, let's go and have a coffee after we've got this technology sorted. And so that's part of the facilitation, which is wonderful.
Yeah. So besides running the class, we also have karaoke every Saturday and Sunday. And so they can just come and sing their hearts out and basically socialize.
And that's well patronized.
Yeah, there's a following for that. But I also realize that there are maybe let's make an assumption, 50%, 30% of seniors who are willing to get out of the house and socialize, who desire to socialize, and who would see all this as opportunities to socialize, and they will come for it. And then the 50 to 70% who will not want to leave their house even if their children or their friends are trying to drag them out to let's go for this.
I'd suggest there might be maybe 20 or 30% in the middle who could be encouraged to change and to do more socially. And that's a group, again, that we need strategies to try and get them to make that transition. But you're right, you've got those two camps, and it's the ones in the middle who we might be able to influence.
Question is manpower, right?
Manpower. So the programs like the karaoke program, I could run it because I had someone who was willing to run it. because he was I was looking for someone, and I kept telling it in different places I went to, and one day this guy stepped up, and so he was willing to coordinate it and run it, and so it's volunteer driven, and he runs it. But if let's say he didn't come up to run it, then I couldn't have started it. So some things we can pay for, but as we talked about earlier, we do have limitations on what we can pay for, and so a lot of things also have to be community driven. I think if you want to socialize, you don't need the government to kickstart things. You'll find people, either in the park, in the coffee shop, somewhere. You will find people. You will socialize, if you want to socialize. So I think it's great to kickstart the socializing whenever we can, but I do realize that we are not the game changers. That they already will socialize anyway if they are in that upper group of wanting to socialize.
Yeah. I was telling Anna just now, we've lost that coffee shop culture, that
No, we haven't. It's still very much alive.
in the smaller towns,
Yeah,
yes.
here in PJ.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that's really nice. We should bring it back in a
That's
big
why
way.
politicians go to every coffee shop during every election.
Yeah, because in fact, the intergeneration choir that we have a special session in the Indian restaurant, and they can chit-chatting. And I know that after the session, the seniors invite the young people to see them sing when they perform. And they become friends. They're each other in social media, and until now, almost a year, and they are still friends. Yeah.
Anna, you just want to add on? No? Mobility is a problem. How do we get seniors to these centers, or, just to move around within the constituency?
I would say, like, if I come from Bukit Gasing point of view, 95% do not have trouble in terms of the means to go. If the willingness is there to go, then that's not a problem. There are enough options to get there. For those who can't, it's normally a financial problem or a health constraint on their part. So I think if the more physio help we can give them, the more we can help some of them to start moving when they can't move. But for the large part of it, I really don't see this as a problem when it comes to PJ. It could be a problem in other places, but I think in PJ, you got enough people still driving at that age. Seniors are still driving. People can fetch one another. They can carpool. They can hitch a ride. They can take Grab. So taking Grab is not difficult for someone who's elderly. It's as long as you know how to use a smartphone, which we cover you on that, and as long as you have some money, and which in PJ is not really the problem for most of them. Maybe nationally, that could be a bigger problem.
I'm not sure whether one of the things with PJ may be an exemption, but some parts of Malaysia that I've visited, the environment for mobility is a little bit problematic, the paving and so on. That's an important part, seats being in your regular spots, so if you are a bit frailer, you can sit down. So the environment's also part of what needs to be done. But you're right, all those other things help with mobility.
You've been involved in town planning, I know. Yeah, and you've made PJ a little bit more accessible in terms of mobility, haven't you? For the blind, for people who are perhaps physically not physically challenged. So maybe somebody should take a leaf out of what you've actually done. Okay. Last words, your hopes. Paley, looking forward. I mean, I'm looking at my notes. It's physical, mental, cognitive, and psychosocial issues that we really need to look at. Purpose is important. We need to get the seniors out, is another challenge. What would you like to leave us with?
I think in this modern world, I think technology can enable senior so that, you can integrate in their life and bring smile in the face and have this meaning, and also enable them at work as well. I think seniors should be open out to technology to learn and embrace them. That will be something that I look forward.
I think the main thing that I would like to see more in Australia and regionally, globally, is around positive attitudes towards ageing, and that ageing is not associated with just growing old in front of the television, but there are so many opportunities which our society, our families, all of that need to support. but that it can be a very positive stage of life.
So I would love to see seniors age meaningfully, hence the name of the company. And what we're trying to do is create ecosystems to go into neighborhoods to actually help all of them do all the things that we want them to. Sometimes we make it practical, so it becomes very accessible. It's close to them. It's right there in their neighborhoods. And that's the vision we see for how we bring seniors together to live well and age well.
I hope everyone who's listening to this starts preparing for your retirement if you haven't already. And it's a reminder to myself, and so that when we head into our golden years, we are prepared, we are still purpose-driven, and we live meaningful lives.
Thank you all for joining me today. Professor Keith Hill, former inaugural director of the Monash Rehabilitation, Aging and Independent Living Research Centre at Monash University, Australia. YB Rajiv Rishyakaran, State Assembly Person for Bukit here in Malaysia. Tepe Lee, Professor of and Head of Department of Management at the School of Business, Monash University, Malaysia, as well as Anna Chu, founder and CEO of Meaningfull Life, speaking to us about aging in Malaysia, addressing challenges and embracing opportunities. This has been Future Conversations.
You were listening to Future Conversations, a podcast by Monash University, Malaysia. For more information, email mum.media@monash.edu.